Hey, we are live. Welcome back. It is New Comic Book Day Book Club. Like we never left, even though we were off last month. And it was
My
on
bad.
John's channel before that. So it's been like 3 months since I've been on my channel not playing D&D. I gotta do something about that. Hi, John. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm feeling very pink today.
Oh, look at you with your Jubilee covers.
I was ready for you.
Oh, I'm ready for Jubilee.
I'm assuming you got this cover.
I didn't.
What?
Yeah,
Your
I'm
girl
behind
on a cover, and you're reading the book for book club, and you didn't buy it.
I know. Listen.
For shame.
I can only buy so many covers, and I'm behind on my Jubilee covers, and I don't have the extensive collection that you do, like your Storm covers.
Yeah, I dug a hole for myself. I'm working it out.
Got a couple of tailgaters, Entropy and Comics, and Magic Lasso. Thanks for hanging out, guys. If you're still here, if you're not and watching on the rewind, I appreciate you anyway. So, for some reason, we've gotten into this like pattern of being on the wrong channel for the books we're talking about. Because last time it was Precious Metal, which is the Little Bird sequel on your channel, and now we're doing X-Men books on my channel.
I like this. It's counter programming. I'm a big fan. I'll watch a romantic comedy at Halloween, and I'll watch a horror movie at Valentine's Day. You can't tell me what to do.
Plus, we're spreading the viewers around because they'd expect to see Precious Metal on my channel, but they're like, "Oh, I'm on John's channel watching that thing about Little Bird."
Yeah. There's that suspenseful, mind-blowing thing going on. We M. Night Shyamalan this.
Speaking of suspenseful, mind-blowing, not the X-Men books, but we are discussing a few of the new X titles. Issue 1, we're talking about X-Men, Uncanny X-Men, X-Factor, and NYX.
So many books that are going to be out soon that have the word X-Men in them because Extraordinary X-Men just dropped this week.
Right. And obviously there's also X-Force, which we're not talking about. That's already come out.
Nobody cares about that
one. And I think there's still a couple more to come, right?
Yeah, because the Storm solo series is next month, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's going to be an ongoing. I don't think they know if it's going to be an ongoing. I think they're just like writing it, and then they're like, let's see what happens.
They're pulling an old Poison Ivy with that one.
I mean, yeah, let's hope it's half as good.
It probably won't be.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and I did read Phoenix too last.
I didn't get that.
Smart move on your
part. I have to draw the line somewhere. Yeah. And I should have drawn it much earlier.
Before the conversation with me when you're like, hey, you know what we should talk about?
I figured you'd want to since you're the X-boy. I'm doing this for you, John, because I care.
I appreciate this because I do need a little motivation. I am very unmotivated right now because I still genuinely enjoyed the Hickman Krakoa era, and I do think there was a lot of at least like enthusiasm and creativity and desire to do something different, which I can respect from a mainstream Marvel kind of title. I'm not saying they nailed it or stuck the landing all the way through. I definitely think it had a bunch of challenges on the editorial side and a bunch of, tying Hickman's arms behind his back when he's trying to do this whole thing. Yeah. And I do think it was a revolutionary time in the sense that, like, I've never heard of a single writer being basically a player coach where he's, managing a whole slew of other titles and helping organize all of them and then writing monthly his own titles within that frame and is an editor within an editorial system and running that many books. I mean, it was like 3 books a week. I've never heard of that before.
Yeah. But arguably it would have been better if he just wrote like X-Men and Uncanny and then the other X books were doing their own thing. I mean, from what obviously I didn't read them all and you did, so you'll have a better sense of that. But
I feel like I could easily pin all the problems with that era on Marvel. saying we need this many books a month.
Yeah.
You know, we need this much stuff. We need it all. And so I think he was trying to please too many people and
Well,
not
I think we, with
tell his story.
good reason, kind of dump on editorial a lot on this show. And I think that I will continue to say it until it is not a problem anymore, but it's really like the biggest hurdle in the big two right now is that editorial just is focused more on, I don't even know what, on making sure things are racking up dollar signs and not worrying about stories
Or preconceived notions about what a
people
successful
want.
comic looks like, you
Yeah.
know, without understanding how art, meaning like creative endeavors,
Right.
are genuine, and how they genuinely create something of quality. I think this is also why you're getting a bunch of titles that have like, we dropped 2 issues and then we took a 3-month break because we weren't ready to drop issue 4, and it was 3 and 4, and it was like, okay, well, why are we even publishing this yet? It's not ready.
Yeah.
So much of that thinking is so backwards.
I understand the world and the industry are very different nowadays, but like the idea of seeing a Byrne Claremont anything nowadays is just seems impossible. Where
Fair.
someone just like where 2 creators just have a vision and get to run with it for a fair amount of time.
Yeah. Independent of a bigger machine, right?
Right.
Yeah. And so I love I always felt like within the Hickman era, I felt like each title at least was trying to do something different, and they weren't trying to duplicate or anything else. They were trying to, you know, for lack of a better words, you know, be original. And I don't think that they all succeeded, and there were plenty of titles I didn't like, but when they were hitting, they were crushing it. And when certain titles were on, like Al Ewing was, I think, really phenomenal all through, you know, X-Men Red, and I think there was lots of shining stars, but too much, and it was too big in scope, and Hickman wasn't given complete free reign to do what he wanted, and those things tripped it up. So now what do we have? I feel like I've been trying to like summarize my thoughts before we dive into these, and the 2 words that kept coming around to me were uninspired and derivative. It's like all I could really grasp that was like common note for me was everything felt like something else, like another version I had seen or read before, and nothing felt like it had any life to it. It felt felt lifeless.
Krakoa's over, mutants are back in the real world, and humans hate them again.
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, we've seen this story before.
Now, it doesn't mean it can't become something or rise up from the ashes into something better at some point. But it just does not start strong.
I will say one of these books I did actually enjoy.
Oh, do you want to start with that one or end with that one?
No, I want to start with X-Men.
Okay.
Which, spoiler alert, is not the one I enjoyed.
Is it because it has Cyclops? You're like, I did not like this book.
No, Cyclops was actually fine in it.
Even though he looked like he was 12 years old.
He did look very young. And Ryan Stegman does a lot of things great. Drawing Beast is not one of them.
No.
So good. That first like face shot of Beast, when
he opens the door for the lady,
I cackled. He looked like such a doofus.
Yeah. I heard that he has in some way or another hinted that editorial told him that Beast had to look a certain way and that Cyclops had to look younger. That those were 2 directions they gave him art-wise.
Well,
and it's 2 of the biggest complaints I had about the look of the book.
Sure. So, you know, is he just passing the buck because people started crapping on it, or I wouldn't put it past editorial to say something like that, but
right.
Beast to look a certain way doesn't mean that he's to look like a dinghole.
He doesn't have to crap in bed that hard.
What's up, Seawood? And what's up, Christina? How you guys doing? So the reason I want to talk about it first, because I think a lot of what we were just touching on applies directly to this title.
Sure.
I'm not even going to get into the giant exposition dump and the excuse of like, oh, Quentin hasn't been paying attention, so he doesn't know what's going on, so we better tell him in the middle of the mission.
To be fair, Quentin had his head chopped off not too long ago. I don't know how he's recovered from the Wolverine storyline. We had where his head was being carried around by Sabretooth like a lantern.
If you're going into a strike mission, you think you'd have a bit of a preparatory session where you're like,
yeah,
here's the bullet points of what you need to know.
You're not making it up on the plane when you're about to jump out.
Or even like in the middle of the battle. So I'm not even going to, because one of the biggest problems now with things like this is that when you relaunch a title like X-Men, there's so much behind that either you have to catch people up on, but then the people who've been reading everything have just to listen to this recap of everything that's been going on.
Yep.
Even with all the exposition, I was still like, I don't know what this means. So it failed me, and I'm betting it failed you.
I mean, we've hit on this note a few times over the years, that the idea of how do you please two separate groups with the same comic, and issue ones try to walk this line, and very few strike an even tone for this, right? Explaining things to newbies and yet also entertaining the diehards, right? And I don't think any of these number ones really pull it off. And I think this one in particular felt like it was trying to be the most mainstream, but at the same time, man, they had so much explaining to do, because the last time we saw these characters, they were, struggling with the destruction of their home country, and now they're like living in Alaska in a robot factory. It's like
lab.
So it's like half of the book was like, let me just tell you why we're here and what we're doing now.
So here are my thoughts on it. And thank you, Magic Lasso, for saying that I'm right. Every once in a while, I hit one out of the park.
I thought he was saying that Wonder Woman was right.
Oh, well, probably that's what he meant.
Because Wonder Woman is usually right.
If you're going to relaunch a number one, and I understand it's how they make money now, because number ones sell more than an issue 19 or issue 50 or whatever. If you're going to relaunch a title of number one, I'm not saying you have to discount everything that's come before.
Okay.
But it should be its own story. And I am guessing this is kind of a continuation of the last series.
Certainly it feels like a wrap up or a jump from, where they're like, okay, here's where we are now.
And as a reader who has not been reading X-Men, I felt like a bit bamboozled by buying an issue one, and it's really not an issue one.
I mean, fair. Was it as big of a bamboozlement as Ultimate X-Men 1 was?
Listen, Ultimate X-Men 1...
They finally started forming a team in issue 6.
It at least is trying something.
Yeah. I'm just teasing you.
I know, because I kind of dumped on it.
I'm still reading that one, and I'm half entertained by it.
Yeah.
I think it's not bad.
Once I decided to take it for what it was, I started enjoying it a lot more. I still think it was a weird choice as an X-Men book, but
yeah, I agree.
That's not what we're talking about tonight.
No. We're talking about all the other weird X-Men books.
But yeah, it's just the same sort of like, oh, humans and mutants aren't getting along, and humans don't like mutants, and blah, blah, blah. And we have to remind them of what they did because they built Sentinels here, and we look weird, and
Just a deep breath right after a lot of. There it is.
It just it wasn't good or enjoyable.
Yeah, that's accurate. I picked bigger words than you, but I get it.
I mean, I'm just trying to put it in the simplest terms of like 2 things a comic should be: good and enjoyable. If you want me to continue reading it. Yeah, too straight.
Yeah, and I thought the characterizations were flat. I thought the story didn't interest me, even when it was trying to be exciting. It was just not interesting. I was generally bored by it. Yeah.
And having said that, it's a book where half of the issue is an action sequence.
Yeah.
But again, that action sequence is overlaid by Cyclops just talking in exposition.
And Beast having a chat with some police officer back at the base.
Where at least like what he's describing to her, is exposition like, but at least it makes sense that he's explaining things to the police officer. Has anyone seen Lost?
I got you.
What's up, TJ? We are already knee deep in it. You'll enjoy watching the rewind of the first 20 minutes. But yeah, so it at least makes sense, like from a logic standpoint, of this sheriff who went to this seemingly dangerous headquarters of these deadly mutants with no backup.
They're just having a chat.
But I mean, I know they're just having a chat, and obviously we know that they're the good mutants, so they're not going to do anything, even though Magneto is there and it's like, no, you should fear me.
Yeah.
Thanks for, putting all my hard work to use. And
yeah.
But as I was saying, that it makes sense that he would explain things to this sheriff because she shouldn't be in the know for a lot of the stuff.
Right.
Cyclops talking during a fight. Like it wouldn't even have been so bad if it was Cyclops narrating and saying, like, explaining what was happening in narration while the battle was going on. I could have excused that more. I don't know if it would have made it better or more enjoyable, but and it just like it was all over the place.
Yeah.
And there's so like 5 pounds of shit in a 2-pound bag.
And I'm worried that that's kind of what this From the Ashes time period is going to be. It's going to be a stopgap. They're just trying to fill the shelves for a few months while they really consider what they want to do and who can man this and what this is going to look like going forward. So we're going to throw a bunch of titles out there. It's not going to be anything really significant. Nobody's reinventing the wheel. We're just going to do some number ones with catchy X-Men titles and are familiar with, and then we'll figure out how to fix this whole thing later.
What a gamble, though, because
yeah,
you burn me with a whole relaunch of titles that aren't good. Why am I going to come back for the next relaunch? That is inevitably going to come in 16, 18 months.
Because we're comic fans and we won't say no. We'll just keep buying it.
I mean,
but those are the people that will buy every time. It's the people that don't buy every time that you need to be going after, trying to get them. And that's not the way to do it. This is disconcerting. The X-Men comics locally haven't been a subject of enthusiasm at my local shop for several years now. That's a problem. Same with Amazing Spider-Man. I think it's been the same thing at Marvel across the board.
Most Marvel and DC books. Like, I don't hear a lot of people, like, besides random titles here or there, really like being excited about anything they're doing.
Yeah.
Which is a scary thought for the future of the industry where, you know, they can't get Batman or Spider-Man right.
He's not wrong, folks.
All
right, so there's X-Men. Yeah, did you have another title you want to do next?
Let's jump to Uncanny.
Sure, and that's where I got your girl.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so here's my first major problem. And I bet you can guess what it is.
Exposition?
No, where the hell is Jubilee? She's a core member of this new Uncanny team. She's on the cover.
Amazing variant.
Not even mentioned in the issue. Not like pops up at the end. Just not there. Not there.
That
I want
problem,
my Jubilee.
I bought that variant, and I don't even know that problem occurred to me.
Oh,
that may be how deep down the rabbit hole of variants I am, where I don't even connect the cover with the book on the inside anymore.
Like, oh wait, Jubilee is supposed to be on this team. And it's like a 4-person team, right? It's Gambit, Rogue, Wolverine, and Jubilee.
And I think there's some like other characters. They're trying to keep it hidden, kind of what the teams will become.
But that's who's on the A cover.
Correct.
Right? Yeah.
She's at the mall eating chili fries. I mean, maybe.
I mean, listen, I would have taken a story of her eating chili fries at the mall and, you know, saving some humans from something, you know, like
instead of battling a Mexican dragon.
I could yell about the lack of Jubilee all night. Let's talk about the Mexican dragon.
Yeah.
Because when this issue started, it starts with this group of bad guys taking over the X-Men mansion.
Yeah.
And I was like, cool, this is going to be like a cool psyops, like small team trying to recapture the X-Men mansion from this group of hired mercenaries type of thing.
Sure.
And then we go to Mexico and fight a dragon for the whole issue.
For the rest, yeah, for sure.
Which had its moments, but like, why? This was not that was not an issue 1 story point.
No.
That was
there was a lot of Wolverine and his baggage, and then Rogue and Gambit kind of like roll through for a little bit.
Yeah. Rogue and Gambit just being like, oh, why are we here? We really want to be banging.
Wolverine's like, can I watch?
Yeah. Can you cuckold me?
I would actually read that book.
Wolverine's probably, I mean, he's been a cuck his whole life. I'm not afraid to say it.
Adjoining rooms.
Yeah, he's watched Jean Grey bang Cyclops for 50 years while he just sat there in the corner.
This may be one of our best episodes.
That's going to be my new shirt that I'm going to make Wolverine that cuckold.
Oh my God.
I'm sure I won't get sued for that one.
No. No, not at all.
Yeah. I mean,
Lasso, he said it like 6 times. You got to have heard it once. He passes out.
Well, welcome to my channel if this is your first time.
Definitely not. Oh my goodness.
I will say this one, regardless of the problems I had with it, was a better read than X-Men.
Yes. And I'll tell you why I feel that way. I think it's almost 100% based on the fact that they nail the characterizations of the 3 lead characters a lot better. Absolutely. This feels like Gambit. In fact, it even feels like a post Jim Lee storyline. Yeah. Like it right in that X-Men Blue era.
97.
Yeah. And it just felt true to them. Now, it wasn't a particularly good X-Men 97 issue, but it was in keeping with those characters, and it captured that same nostalgia vibe.
At least I could enjoy the characters and the banter between them.
Right.
Whereas besides maybe Beast in X-Men, like nobody had personality. Even Quentin, who's like the king of personality, fell flat.
Yeah.
And Magneto was just like Mr. Grumpy Pants, and like no one had any depth to them. Whereas these characters I recognized, and I was like, okay, these characters I enjoy. What they're doing, I don't enjoy so much, but at least like I'm getting some enjoyment about their dialogue.
Yeah.
But
and they're
still,
apparently heading to New Orleans, so that's they're not going to go do your X-Men Mansion problem solve because they're going to be in Nolans for a while.
Yeah, and that could be cool.
I mean, yeah, it does feel like we're getting the X-Men version of what is it? The Avengers that are like from every state.
Oh
Great
yeah,
Lakes Avengers, and we've got an X-Men team in Alaska. We got an X-Men team in New Orleans. We got an X-Men team in Chicago.
Unfortunately not. I don't want to get kicked off YouTube permanently. But check the links in my IG description.
There you go. I have an OnlyFlans. We just make custards.
Yeah. I have an Only Feet, which Lost had nudity. You get that Hurley. That deleted Hurley sunbathing scene.
nothing like getting busy.
Yeah.
Michael Emerson going to Pound Town.
Give a whole new meaning to the word hatch. Anyway. You got any more on this issue?
No, I just don't think it amounted to much of anything. It felt like a mediocre annual. Like it just felt bland.
Especially because like this is the first Uncanny we've had in quite a few years.
Is that? I'm trying to think. You're right, because they never really did it as an Uncanny. They just called it X-Men, right? Yeah.
Right. There was no Uncanny in the Hickman run.
Yeah, they had an Uncanny something else though, not an X-Men. I thought there was another
Uncanny Avengers and Uncanny Spider-Man.
There it is. Yeah, the Uncanny Spider-Man one that Cy Spurrier did, which was very entertaining. I liked that miniseries, but I liked everything Cy Spurrier did in this era. He had he captured Legion really well. He captured Nightcrawler really well. He did Mystique and lots of great characters. He would.
Hurley is daddy.
He does he has the vibe.
I'll let you pick what we talk about next.
So we got Nyx and X Factor, right? I want to save X Factor for last, so let's do NYX, the young people in New York storyline. Yeah. X-Men go clubbing. X-Men After Dark. X-Men on this club scene.
This book probably was not for me.
No,
but it was not for me.
Yeah, I did not like it. I did not like it.
I feel like I don't know why, because I have enjoyed some Miss Marvel comics, and I enjoyed the Miss Marvel show. I know some people didn't, but I thought it was really good.
Sure, so we did too.
I don't know why people have such a hard time writing her, because she was not likable in this.
No. And Laura Kinney has almost no part in this one, but in the second issue, she's got a bigger part. She kind of narrates the second issue, and it's better for that character, but I was looking forward to more X-23 or Wolverine, all new Wolverine. And
hey, I got her in this issue, unlike Jubilee and Uncanny X-Men.
Yeah, that's not an inaccurate statement. But she gets it seemed like they gave the focus to Kamala in this one and to Laura in the next one.
Okay.
But it didn't improve the story in any real way.
And she's such a grouch too.
Yeah.
She just comes in like a wrecking ball, like, I don't want to do this. And of course, we got the villain reveal at the end. It was just stupid.
Yeah. Yeah. And the least I don't know, the least plot driven of any of them. It just seemed like character driven, and the characterizations were bad.
Yeah. Generic.
That's a good way to describe it. Chaos, can you remind me, Chris, you would know the title. I can't remember the title of the book, but there was a really fun mini-series with Laura in it, and I think it had Dazzler. It was like a bunch of the female characters from X-Men, like on a night on the town, and they bump into a coven of vampires or something. It was just 4 issues or 5 issues, and it was amazing. It was like one of the best minis during the Krakoan era, and it had nothing to do with Krakoa. It was just these great characters in New York City, and it was. I feel like they were trying to rip that off, and they didn't know the recipe. They were just making it up as they went. This wasn't nearly as good as that one was, and that was really entertaining. I did say Dazzler. There it is. He's back. That smelling salts is saying things like Wonder Woman or Dazzler. He wakes right up.
I just feel like she should be a more lighthearted character, and obviously, like
Laura,
both Laura, but Kamala
specifically. Okay.
She should be this teenager who's in over her head. She should be this, young girl who's trying to figure out herself while she's trying to figure out the world around her.
And she's just had her life flipped because now she's learned she's a mutant and all these other things. But it none of that seems to happen here.
I don't know. It was just whatever.
Fair.
I really have like the least to say about this one just because it was so.
Which is why I kind of wanted to get it out of
the generic.
I figured we could get it out of the way now. Just kind of like clear the air a little bit. You good?
Yeah, I'm great.
One last book, and I'll tell you, this was the one. I think you and I chatted a little at one point about how of the titles that were when they were announced, and this a warning sign is Exterminators. Thank you. That was called Exterminators. You should totally read that, Alec. I think you would think it was hilarious and enjoy it. It was well written, funny.
For sure, I can track down the issues.
And lighthearted, and it had all the best female. I want to say Jubilee might have even been in it, if I'm not mistaken. But this X Factor title, it's a danger sign when they announce the creative teams and you don't really know who a lot of them are, and it's like, okay, what's going on here? This was the one when they announced the writer, and I was like, oh, really? Mark Russell's getting a book. That's kind of interesting, And I just finished his, Traveling to Mars, which I thought was phenomenal. And I'm obviously a fan of the Second Coming books that he's done. And he's just a very interesting writer who balances plot and comedy, device tricks and things really well. So I was like, okay. And then the flaw for me was every character they announced for this book, I was like, I really don't like any of these characters at all. It's like the worst X-Men.
Good news for you. Because a lot of them die in this first issue.
I mean, it's true. You're not wrong. Yeah. Oh, she is. So yeah, she's one of the main. You should totally read that book. You would love it.
So by process elimination, I'm guessing you figured out this is the book that I enjoyed out of the 4.
I think I guessed it when you said that there was one, just because knowing all of them and knowing you, this was the one I would rank highest. So I figured it would be the same for you. Not that this is like a success, folks. Not that I'm saying that this is a great book and that everybody should rush out and grab it.
Maybe it's because like I read it in between all these other books that I was like, oh, this is pretty good. So, it's like after eating something really sour, you eat something that's like not so bad.
I mean, as long as you're calling it sour, I was like, you take a big bite of shit, and then anything else you rinse your mouth out, it's going to be cleaner.
But no, like I enjoyed reading it. Like it avoids the problems of a number 1 that I was talking about earlier, where it clearly had roots in what's been happening, but it was very much its own thing. It was like, so for those of you who don't know, the plot of this book is that this guy who's this big TV executive producer puts together a new X Factor team to be like basically reality stars.
Yeah.
But actually go out and perform ops.
Yeah.
But at the same time presenting them like TV stars. So they, have all this social media and they live in like an influencer house, and it's led by Angel for the start of the book. So like it had a very good contained idea.
Sure.
Which I immediately appreciated after reading X-Men and Uncanny, where it was just like throwing spaghetti at the wall. Like
Right.
this was like it was focused, and like you said, there was humor in it, but at the end it got like very dark and very serious.
Yeah.
Which I liked. And we'll get to the end in a second. But yeah, the art was neither here nor there for me. I didn't like it was fine, it was serviceable, but
Yeah, I don't even remember who the artist was.
I wasn't.
I don't think I'd heard of them, or I didn't recall them. It is Bob Quinn.
Not familiar.
The great Bob
I
Quinn.
mean, it was fine, and like I didn't have a problem with the art. It just wasn't exciting to me. I don't know.
Sure.
But like as a number one of a new X book, far and away, heads above the other ones.
Sure. I think that's absolutely fair.
Now, is it without problems? Like, of course not. It's a Marvel book, but
yeah, this is true.
I'll let you. Since I've complained enough, I'll let you talk about some of the problems you had with it.
No, most of my problems are around the characters that they chose for the team. I just don't. Angel is one of my least favorite X-Men ever. I think Warren I struggle to enjoy that character.
Mm-hmm.
You throw Havoc and Polaris in there, you're sinking the ship, you know.
Yeah. But I mean,
and Farrell, I think, is one of the. Isn't she in this team?
Yeah, she's in it, but she is one of the ones who dies, right?
I think so. Yeah.
They're kind of unclear about which ones die and which ones are hurt because they say
dead or clinging to life, and then they just move on to the next.
So basically, what happens is they go. There's this other group called I forget what they're called. If I can find it, X-Term. They're this kind of Russian-led group of basically X Factor, but bad guys. And there's even one really good line where they accuse the female who's leading that team, Darkhold, I think.
Sure.
There's a line where they're like, "You're killing people for money," and she says, well, "How is that so different from what you're doing?" And I thought that was like a really poignant line. But anyway, so this X-Term is creating this kind of self-contained little city town. I don't know what you want to call it, with some nuclear reactors, and they send X Factor in to kind of shut them down, and they kind of mess up and end up shooting the plastique while they're still inside, and these giant nuclear reactor smokestacks fall on a bunch of them and kill some and maim some of the other ones. And the issue ends with this TV executive visiting Angel in the hospital, who's all wrapped up in gauze, including his wings, which I thought was very funny.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Hey, look, X Factor's a hit. Look at how well we're doing in the ratings." And he's like, "I figured it out. The trick to getting America to love you is to focus on the story. Basically, like, it doesn't matter who the characters are."
Yeah.
And he totally relaunched the team now with Havoc in charge.
Yep.
Instead of Angel.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a very. It's not like a last page villain reveal. It is like a last page reveal.
Yeah.
But it was at least like a clever twist on it.
Sure. No, and it's also wonderfully like meta, right? There's a lot of elements to it that are self-referential.
Especially because what you were just saying is like, I don't like the team. Well, guess what? We're going to switch it up, and maybe in the next issue it's going to be a totally different team after that. Like,
and it could be a thing that they do for several issues, is like constantly flip the script on this, which is, I think, again, very funny, and it's a comment on how do you make a comic book successful. It doesn't matter, but it's all interchangeable. You just keep throwing stuff at them. There's this comment about the comic book industry built into it,
especially X-Men.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I thought that was very clever, and I don't know if editorial picked up on that or if they're just like, yeah, we'll let it go because it's a funny idea.
Because
But
who's gonna read X Factor?
yeah, these two idiots. So yeah, so head and shoulders above the other ones. I enjoyed this. This is the one that like I could see myself continuing to read to see where it goes from here. I have bought a couple issues of X-Men. I just haven't read them yet. So, but after reading the first one, I'm probably
It doesn't get a whole lot better. I think I've read the first three, and
first three are the ones that are out.
I'm gonna try to read here or there whenever I feel like it. Like just give a little burst of effort into it, because you know, you gotta build up the endurance and then charge full head into the wall.
And I think you're in too deep at this point. You can't just go cold turkey.
I mean, I was prepared to do it.
But then you saw X-Men #1s on the shelf, and you're like, "Ooh, shiny!"
It's funny because I didn't even buy that issue. I bought the Jubilee one. Actually, I think I got the Jubilee one as a gift. The only ones I actually bought were I bought X Factor, and I got Phoenix, and then I was sharing this. Ryan, this was the Avengers cover I was trying to describe to you that I got for Storm now as an Avenger. So, but yeah, most of the rest of it, I just skipped it and read it digitally.
So yeah, that's where I'm at with what I've read of the new X releases.
I will say I've kept up on a few of them. I've read Phoenix. Nothing is better than X Factor. The Avengers issue was it was less like a Storm joins the team and more like Falcon wants to talk to her about joining the team. And then it cuts to the bad and other stuff, you know, that they're going to fight. But she doesn't officially accept, and she doesn't show up at the mansion or anything like that. Or what do they call it? The Avengers Mansion?
Avengers Tower.
Sure, that. So it's
so
more
it's
just like Falcon and her talking.
So it's not actually the issue where Storm joins the Avengers?
Technically, it's the next issue, yeah.
Collector standpoint?
Yeah. Certainly she gets the offer, and he asks, like, I want you to be a team member. But it's more like they're flying together and just having this conversation.
Oh, cute.
Yeah. I mean, the art's really good. I don't even know who's on that. Because I haven't been reading this for quite a while. Avengers is Valerio Schiti, and it's not Schiti at all. Yeah, I don't know if you can, how much of it you can see. But there she is, flying along, talking to him. She is chatting away, hair flying in the lightning.
I understand, like, you have to take characters in new directions sometimes, but for all the struggles that we just talked about for some of these X books, they really could have used someone as strong of a character. No, I don't mean like strong as in power-wise, but strong as in
visually a strength,
depth, and character as Storm in one of these books.
Sure,
but you got to sell Avengers 2, I guess.
Sure, why not? Some sucker is going to buy a copy even though he hasn't been reading the other 16 issues. Yeah, so that's where I'm at these days. I'm gonna keep trying new. Like I'll read the Extraordinary X-Men that came out this week, which is the Chicago team. Chicago. But you got Emma and Kitty in that one, so you got at least two characters I like, and a lot of new characters I think in that one.
A lot of nude characters.
Sure.
Ooh.
Something to do with like mutants in Chicago and seeking out Emma and Kitty to like train them or something.
They eating deep dish.
I do think Kitty's working in a restaurant actually in the storyline, something like that, because she's trying to like start a new life back home where she came from. You know.
Do they have a scene with that giant metallic bean? I don't know a lot about Chicago.
I was gonna say you really just got a couple of notes to play there.
Perfect Strangers. The Bears.
Nailed it. That's all you
No, the
need.
White Sox are terrible.
John Cusack, right? He's a Chicago guy.
Probably.
Probably. Okay. It's
CM Punk,
45
the
minutes.
wrestler, is a Chicago guy.
We can either jump into the other book or call it quits at 45 minutes. I don't know where you're feeling about this.
Yeah, I don't know if I have the energy, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot, so we can save it for another time. But I will. Yeah, what's it called? Power.
The Power Fantasy.
The Power Fantasy by Kieran Gillen. We also read that indie, or Alec recommended that I try it out because obviously Kieran Gillen I like a lot, and he did some great stuff in the X-Men era. We obviously launched a lot of this show with Die back in the day. It was like our 6th book we did or something. I would just basically say, oh, it was okay.
Yeah, it was okay.
That's about all I need to say to it.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I recommended it so much as like I said, oh, this is like a big deal Image title right now. Maybe we should talk about that. But,
yeah, and a talented writer that we both generally enjoy.
I mean, I didn't hate it. It wasn't like Die issue 1 where I was like, oh my god, what a really pulled me in.
Exactly. Yeah. So I don't know that we need to dive too into it. Other than that,
okay, I'm cool with that. Got anything to promote?
I don't think I've got anything coming up the next few days. Next week, I have Magic Lasso and I are back to doing JLA versus Avengers. We're on issue number 5 of the Silver Age Classic. Silver Age sucks. So we'll be reading those.
I'm wrong.
I'm definitely learning a lot. I'll tell you that.
You definitely have to read books like that under a different lens, right? Because it was 70 years ago at this point.
I've learned a lot about Snapper Carr that I did not know before.
But man, and honestly, I say Silver Age sucks, but Modern Age sucks just as bad.
Here's what I will
much different way.
Here's what I will say is the JLA book in particular. Obviously, Kirby is Kirby, and you can do a whole other discussion about that. But the art in the JLA book, the amount of detail in a monthly book, it is impressive. And there's been a ton of panels that I was really blown away by. I've been just very pleased by it. Kirby has finally hit his stride. Issues 3 and 4, he's finally, I think, issues 1 and 2 felt like he was under the gun or something. He couldn't keep up. But issues 3 and 4, he started to get kind of what he wanted to do. And it felt more like classic Kirby kind of stuff. So that is on the 11th. So a week from today. I just did a couple of live streams last weekend too. You can check out James Bond and Fairy Porn. Separate. Those are 2 different things. It's not one stream. It's 2 different streams.
I mean, hey, that's a world of fanfic you could start.
Yep.
We have D&D on my channel most Sunday nights. I think we should be on this weekend, probably.
I think so too.
We were off this past weekend, but finally out of the Dwarven keep and on to bigger and better things. So we'll see what happens with the characters. If you haven't been watching, I don't blame you. It's not something that probably a lot of people are going to want to watch. It's a lot of dice rolling and these guys making weird decisions, but every once in a while there's a good laugh.
Fair.
So in the meantime, thank you all for joining us. Thank you, John. Go subscribe to him because I'm sure all of my viewers don't know him yet. And never turn your back on Marvel editorial. Okay,